Well, it was only a matter of time before I said something about the Star Wars universe on a whole. This is going to be a very positive, then very negative look at the Star Wars universe. And like most franchises I used to love, hearing about future movies and TV shows doesn't really fill me with hope or joy or anything but indifference mostly, or maybe even a little anger. But yeah, let's just focus on Star Wars for now. Now, most people know the story of George Lucas basically sacrificing his health and his family life to get the first Star Wars movie to theaters. And even though everyone thought it was going to be a stupid kids film, I mean, even the actors in the movie were pretty sure it was going to be a huge failure and thought the whole thing was going to be a joke. But once everyone saw the final project, they realized that they were fucking idiots with tiny dicks and pussies, and everyone had their minds completely blown. Before Star Wars, no one had ever watched a movie that was on that kind of a scale. Although a lot of people credit Spielberg's Jaws with creating the summer blockbuster, Star Wars definitely solidified it, and Lucas definitely put everything he had into getting it made. But in the first two movies, it was more of a collaborative effort, with many people helping Star Wars or make Star Wars what it was, even having someone else direct the second and probably best movie. And the people at home, well, they couldn't get enough. But after the second film, the franchise runs into its first major problem. And that problem's name was George Lucas. See, George Lucas had enough foresight to keep the licensing rights to the merchandise for the franchise. And because Fox didn't give a shit about it and assumed it was going to be a failure anyway, they didn't care. I mean, who gives a shit about some stupid movie that no one was going to go watch, right? So of course they're going to let him keep the rights to the merchandise. But 20th Century Fox were way fucking wrong about that, and it turned out to be a global phenomenon. And everyone wanted a piece of that shit. Which included toys, t-shirts, posters, and books. And I may be speaking from my own personal experience, but if it says Star Wars on it, there's probably a 70% chance that I'll probably buy it. But don't act like I'm the weird one. It's very common for people to buy Star Wars shit, even as adults. And there's nothing wrong with that. Probably. But back to what I was saying. Mr. Lucas saw the last movie in his trilogy as a good time to sell as many fucking toys as possible. And he was smart enough to appeal to kids, and to trick them while they're still too young to know better, and to make them Star Wars fans for life. And it totally fucking worked. 1000% fucking worked. The movie I speak of course, is Return of the Jedi. A middle-of-the-road movie that, while being a huge drop in quality from the second film, still served as a good farewell for Luke Skywalker. But it still should have been a warning to all Star Wars fans for any future installments. But most people were just kids when this movie came out, and speaking as someone who was a kid and loved Return of the Jedi, when I was a kid, I get it. As a stupid kid, you don't realize how watered down Han's character is, and you certainly don't realize how fucking stupid Ewoks are, or how special effects are being shoved down your throat in place of story. And all those fancy toys are going to be sold to you. But overall, basically all was well into the Star Wars universe, and the franchise was seen in a mostly positive light. And besides the expanded universe, which most people don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about, and a video game here and there, the Star Wars universe was mostly dormant.
Why didn't you tell me? You told me Vader betrayed and murdered my father.
Your father?
While Star Wars hibernated after Return of the Jedi, the movie blockbuster went crazy. And so many classic blockbusters came out, like E.T., Indiana Jones, Alien, Aliens, Top Gun, Rambo, and many, many more. And mostly they all owed Star Wars a big hell yeah! But one movie blockbuster would change the course of Star Wars history forever. And that movie was Jurassic Park. Turns out, George Lucas wasn't done making Star Wars movies, but he was waiting for the special effects technology to catch up with his ultimate vision. And sometime in the mid-90s he started pre-production on his grand vision of the story of Anakin Skywalker, also known as Darth Vader. I know spoilers. And it was soon announced that the original classic Star Wars movies would be going back in the theaters, and this time they'd be remastered and quote-unquote fixed compared to their original counterparts. On top of that, the prequels were announced and the hype machine started to go fucking nuts. And I couldn't wait. The first time I ever watched the Star Wars movies was when the remasters came out, and I was super young and super excited for what came next.
Think you're being treated unfairly?
No.
Good. It would be unfortunate if I had to leave the garrison here.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
And 2 years later, on May 19th, 1999, The Phantom Menace was released. And it made a shit ton of money, and gained a whole new generation of Star Wars fan. Most of which were completely duped, like young children were duped by Return of the Jedi over a decade earlier. See, older Star Wars fans saw the movie for a cheesy piece of shit that it was. It was boring, horribly acted, and apart from a sweet lightsaber battle at the end, it was pretty forgettable. But to a child like myself, this movie seemed awesome. And stupid characters like Jar Jar Binks were fun and silly and so cute.
Boy, I love you.
You almost got us killed. Are you brainless?
I speak.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent. Now get out of here.
No, Mr. Stay. Mr. got Jar Jar Binks. Mr. You're humble.
Worst of all, they hired an actor that was way too young for the role of Anakin Skywalker. It came off too cutesy, even for a family movie. And it really put the actor Jake Lloyd in a bad position because older Star Wars fans thought it was appropriate to take their frustrations out on a 10-year-old boy. And they basically ruined his life, unfortunately. Luckily, George Lucas got a lot of that flack too. All of which he deserved.
Oh my god, sir, wait, I'm tired!
Anakin, drop! Go! Tell them to take off!
Honestly, Anakin should have been at least 12 years old, and more rebellious, had some attitude, but generally a good heart. Instead, we got a soul so pure that it's hard to imagine he would ever turn evil. And it's something we'll talk about a little more when we get to the next movie. But even though this movie took a shit kicking critically, the money train stopped at George Lucas's house a lot. And this movie was a fan favorite among children, like myself. It would only be a few years down the road before we realized we'd all been duped by that bastard George Lucas and that motherfucking cocksucker. And even worse, I used to argue with older kids saying it was a great Star Wars movie to only grow up and realize I'd basically been assaulted by a movie.
Training to become a Jedi is not an easy challenge. And even if you succeed, it's a hard life.
But I want to go. It's what I've always dreamed of doing. Can I go, Mom?
Anakin, this path has been placed before you. The choice is yours alone.
I want to do it.
So the first prequel didn't do much to make the public happy. But luckily the second one showed up, and also didn't do much to help the franchise critically in any way. It actually may have been worse. Besides Christopher Lee's Count Dooku and the sweet fight he had at the end of the movie with Yoda, the rest of the movie is pretty forgettable. And they turned Anakin into a total creep.
Please don't look at me like that.
Why not?
It makes me feel uncomfortable.
What's going on? She covered the cameras. I don't think she liked me watching her.
What does she think?
I mean, the third prequel movie showed how Emperor Palpatine was able to pull Anakin's strings so easily and turn him against the Jedi, but there was no reason to make it appear as though he's always going to turn to the dark side until it finally happens in the third movie. They had a chance to show a true hero, maybe with some tones of a rebellious side in his personality, but likable, kind of like Han Solo. and not like some spoiled child that needs to be told no. And don't get me started on his relationship with Obi-Wan.
You seem a little on edge.
Not at all.
I haven't felt you this tense since we fell into that nest of Gundarks.
You fell into that nightmare, Master, and I rescued you, remember?
Oh, yes.
These guys are supposed to be friends and brothers. They had a chance to show a true friendship between a young mentor and a student with incredible potential. But they made Anakin a hot-headed idiot who thinks he knows everything, and he's completely unlikable.
You've grown up.
Master Obi-Wan manages not to see it. Don't get me wrong. Obi-Wan is a great mentor. As wise as Master Yoda and as powerful as Master Windu. I am truly thankful to be his apprentice. In some ways, a lot of ways, I'm really ahead of him. I'm ready for the trials, but he feels that I'm too unpredictable. He won't let me move on.
That must be frustrating.
It's worse. He's overly critical. He never listens. He doesn't understand. It's not fair.
It makes you feel that Obi-Wan was only there at obligation to Qui-Gon Jinn, and not friendship, which is just kind of annoying. And we're supposed to like Anakin, but yeah, he just comes off as someone that no one wants to be around. And don't even get me started on his relationship with Padme, where, he basically stalks her and makes her feel uncomfortable until she falls in love with him for some reason. There is a fan theory out there that Anakin was accidentally affecting Padme with the Force, because of how powerful he is with the Force, but he didn't realize he was doing it. But it makes a lot more sense than her actually falling in love with him any other way. Because he's a creep. I guess what I'm really trying to say is, no one really wants to listen to his whiny emo poetry about, his mom, or, how he's a slave and Watto was his best friend. Like, no one cares, dude.
I truly, deeply love you.
But there was a glimmer of hope in the last prequel movie, Revenge of the Sith. While not perfect, finally gave us an awesome relationship with Obi-Wan and Anakin.
The Chancellor's signal is coming from right there. The observation platform at the top of that spire.
I sense Count Dooku.
I sense a trap.
Next move?
Spring the trap.
Drop your weapon. I said drop them. Roger.
Always on the move.
What's that all about?
Well, R2 has been...
no loose wire jokes.
They finally made Anakin way less annoying. And they also showed him being a total badass. Which he kind of did in the second movie, but mostly got his ass kicked, so yeah.
Sense great fear in you, Skywalker. You have hate. You have anger. But you don't use them.
Good.
There's a small part of me that thinks that this was the movie that George Lucas really always wanted to make. The other two were just kind of like a, a cash grab. Again, there are some flaws in this movie, but man, it's probably the best Star Wars movie since Empire. But this movie showed Palpatine grooming Anakin, and making it believable that he could pull Anakin's strings, and actually make Anakin believe the Jedi aren't the glorious heroes they make themselves out to be.
The report from Master Kenobi. He has engaged General Grievous.
You can only hope that Master Kenobi is up to the challenge.
I should be there with him.
It's upsetting to me to see that the Council doesn't seem to fully appreciate your talents. Don't you wonder why they won't make you a Jedi Master?
I wish I knew. More and more, I get the feeling that I'm being excluded from the Council. I know there are things about the Force that they're not telling me.
They don't trust you, Anakin.
They see your future. They know your power will be too strong to control. You must break through the fog of lies the Jedi have created around you. Let me help you to know the subtleties of the Force.
How do you know the ways of the Force?
My mentor taught me everything about the Force, even the nature of the dark side.
You know the dark side?
Anakin, if one is to understand the great mystery, one must study all its aspects, not just the dogmatic, narrow view of the Jedi. If you wish to become a complete and wise leader, you must embrace a larger view of the Force. Be careful of the Jedi, Anakin. Only through me can you achieve a power greater than any Jedi. Learn to know the dark side of the Force, and you will be able to save your wife from certain death.
But some of Anakin's emotional reactions were still cringe, but that was some leftover cringe from the second prequel. Like I said earlier, they shouldn't have made him Anakin a weird creep in the second one. The Emperor was able to believably turn Anakin to the dark side without him having to be a creep in the second movie.
Hello there.
I am the Senate.
It's treason, then.